Imagine the night over Lake Texcoco. The water is dark as obsidian, reflecting the stars above. On the islands among the reeds, the lights of the great city, Tenochtitlan, glow. Once, this was one of the most impressive cities in the world. Canals, bridges, temples, the hum of markets, and thousands of canoes on the water. Here was born the people later known as the Aztecs. They called themselves the Mexica, and for centuries their origins were explained by a single powerful legend. According to ancient stories, their ancestors came from the distant north, from a mysterious land called Aztlan. It was a homeland, almost mythical, from which a single people emerged, guided by their god. They left it and set out on a long journey through deserts, mountains, and valleys. Years of wandering, trials, and wars, until one day they saw a sign, an eagle perched on a cactus devouring a snake. There, they built their city. This story survived through the centuries. It was recorded in codices, retold by chroniclers after the Spanish conquest, and became the foundation of what we believed about the Aztecs' origins. According to it, the Mexica were a single people, coming from one place, following one path. But centuries later, a new opportunity arose to ask the past a different question. And this time, the answer came not from legend, but from science. In recent years, archaeologists and geneticists have begun to study ancient burials in the cities of Tlatelolco and Xaltocan. Both cities played important roles in the Aztec world. Tlatelolco was famous for its enormous market, drawing merchants from across Mesoamerica. Xaltocan had an even older history and had experienced periods of growth, war, and migration. Beneath layers of earth, archaeologists found human remains, people who had lived long before Europeans arrived. They were ordinary residents, artisans, traders, warriors, mothers, and children. Their names are long forgotten, but within their bones remained something far more enduring: DNA. Special attention was given to mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material passed down the maternal line. This molecule allows researchers to trace ancient family lines for thousands of years. If the legend of a single northern homeland reflected reality, one might have expected most people to belong to a single dominant genetic lineage. But the results were surprising. The burials revealed a complex genetic mosaic. Instead of one line, researchers found several. Haplogroups A, B, C, and D. These are 4 ancient maternal lineages characteristic of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. They appeared side by side, sometimes within a single generation. This meant that Aztec society was not genetically homogeneous. On the contrary, it was the result of prolonged mixing among different groups. The story told by DNA turned out far more complex than the old legend. It speaks of centuries of movement, contact, and alliances among peoples. Long before Europeans arrived, Mesoamerica was a dynamic world where cities traded, waged war, formed marriage alliances, and exchanged cultures. This is especially evident in Tlatelolco. Its market was one of the largest in ancient America. Spanish chroniclers later noted that tens of thousands of people gathered there simultaneously. They sold cacao beans, jade, obsidian, textiles, tropical bird feathers, and rare shells from distant coasts. But along with goods, people traveled as well. Merchants settled in new cities, families formed marriage alliances, captured warriors became part of local communities. Over time, this inevitably led to the mixing of genealogies. Genetic data confirms this picture. Xaltocan adds yet another layer. This city experienced complex periods of political change. Populations came and went. Some groups displaced others. Each migration left its mark, not only in culture, but also in genes. Over time, all these lines intertwined. This discovery changes our understanding of Aztec identity. It shows that the Aztecs were not an isolated people, but a result of a long historical process. Their society developed gradually through trade, alliances, migration, and intermarriage. And it was precisely this diversity that became the foundation of their strength. By the 15th century, the Aztec state had become a vast empire controlling a significant portion of central Mexico. But this empire was not built on the idea of a single origin. It was built on the ability to unite different cities and peoples into one political system. Each new alliance added new lines to this story, cultural and genetic. And now, centuries later, ancient DNA allows us to see this process almost directly. The bones of people from Tlatelolco and Xaltocan lay in the earth for hundreds of years, yet within them remains a molecular memory of the past. It tells us that the story of the Aztecs is not the story of a single people coming from a single point. It's a story of a network of roads, markets, marriages, and alliances connecting cities and cultures across Mesoamerica. And here's the paradox. The legend of Aztlan spoke of a single beginning, but the real story turned out even more remarkable, because it tells us not about purity of origin. It tells us about mixing, about how different peoples moving through centuries gradually created one of the most vibrant civilizations in ancient America. And this is why the true history of the Aztecs is far more fascinating than any legend.